Hello, ladies and gentlemen. It is myself, George. I'm joined by Alex once again. It is Tier 3 time of PSGL. It's PC, of course, because I'm an elitist and don't own a console. So what other reason would there to be than to drive with a wheel or a keyboard? Anyway, we're going to a great week this week. We had a fantastic race last time in Spain, and to continue the trend with the S's, it's Singapore across the other side of the world. Alex, how are you doing? Are you looking forward to this evening?
I am doing amazing. I love Singapore. It is one of my favorite tracks in the F1 game. Always has excitement. It has a very good reputation of the old Singapore sling. It's just a beautiful track. How are you doing this evening?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm tired. I've been grinding Destiny all week because I'm an absolute nerd and don't always commit all my time to sim racing games, as much as that might deceive people that think I'm some sort of sim racing aficionado. I'm not. I just live stream. The only time I live stream is sim racing. Anyway, yeah, I'm looking forward to Singapore as well. It is one of my favorite tracks too, just because it often produces like good racing because there are so many corners and also so many walls that can often throw a bit of a spanner in the works. So it's always exciting. One of my favorites for that very reason. We'll take a quick look. Oh, well, no, I don't think we will actually. I haven't got that prepared, but doesn't matter anyway. We'll take a quick look at what's going in and qualifying then. Let's crack on. Who are we going to head out with first? I mean, okay, Menno had a bit of a rough time last week, Alex. Why don't you tell everyone what happened post-race with Menno?
So, Menno finished P3 initially and then got a 5-second time penalty for causing a collision, which was really upsetting. Did take his podium away, moved him down to P6. Just a little reminder of what happened last week if you missed it or if you have forgotten. So we had Klaffenbach on pole, showing his pace immediately. Had a really good race. The top three, who was Julian, Lilian, Bartos, all getting ahead until post pit stops when they had an accident. Julian and Bartos dropping down the order. Lilian went on to win. And so the podium was then Lilian, Andres, and Menno, and then Menno got the 5-second time penalty, moving down to P6, and Noel Carman took the third spot, which has in turn given Mercedes the lead in the Constructors' Championship. But it was a very exciting race last week, and I'm sure we'll have the same again.
Yes, hopefully we will. I'm very excited for it. Singapore also, because it can be a little bit difficult to overtake on Singapore sometimes with DRS being not really as powerful, or at least the straights not being very long. You haven't got a lot of very straight up braking zones that you make overtakes into. It's quite one of those tracks that flows together. Qualifying is very, very important. So to get a good run together here in qualifying is going to be probably more important than it was last week in Spain, to be honest with you. So let's keep our focus dialed in on qualifying for the time being. We can look forward to the race in a little bit. Of course, strategy for that one will be very narrow. So again, qualifying becomes all the more important. So, like you mentioned, last week our best qualifier was Julian Klaffenbach, and he took pole by quite some way. But Menno is currently one of the first 3 drivers, I believe, to be on a lap, along with one of the McLarens and a Haas, which I believe is Nitro Shooter.
Yep, no, so Nitro Shooter coming through Sector 2. We'll keep our eyes on Menno, though. Also in Sector 2 at the moment, reaching the old Singapore Sling area down to turn 10 and 11. Such an easy bit to lose the car. If you take the curb wrong, if you go a little bit too deep, you're in the wall. Following a very sharp left-hander. Again, so easy to lock up here. He's taking it very nicely, short shifting to the fourth, getting good exit. And as you mentioned, a DRS straight, not very long at all, into not a very big overtaking corner as well due to the angle, and then a wide runoff exiting turn 14, I think that is, through the 16-17 complex, going over the curves as much as you can there without losing the car. And this section actually won't be in the game next year as the track is updating through the tunnel. So it's going to make the track a lot faster next season. But going through the final corners of the lap, it looks to be pretty solid. I haven't seen any major mistakes going through the almost flat out final corner, and he's gonna set a 35.9. Nitro Shooter sets a 35.6. So those are our first banker lap times.
Yeah, very strong as a matter of fact. Got to be pleased with a couple of those, but Nitro Shooter last time sat out some pretty good lap times in qualifying and got himself into a reasonably strong position. In F4 last season, he was kind of like a bit of a non-starter, really. Kind of did well or either just didn't really feature. And now in F3 this season seems to be a little bit better, but I've just switched over to Julian Klaffenbach, and I've just watched him dive into the wall and take a little bit off his front wing. I think completely missed his braking zone, and as such has had to scrap his first attempt around the Marina Bay circuit. So, who else is on a lap that will be notable at least? Well, let's have a look at one of the McLarens that was out on a lap. That was Felipe Sousa, unfortunately invalidated. So, not really going to be much to write home about there. Noel Carman, then. Podium finisher last time out, obviously by a fair amount of fortune, had those 3 cars go into a scuffle ahead of him, got a penalty in front of him as well, losing the rear as well in this corner. So fortune...
He's on an in-lap.
In-lap, okay. Fortune favours the bold, as they say. So Noel Carman, maybe the fortunate last week, but he has to be bold this week in qualifying.
Yeah, very true. Who else is on a lap?
Liam Stevens?
Liam Stevens.
Looks like he's hustling.
He is not deploying, so I don't think he is. Honestly can't see anyone on a lap.
I think that's
everyone
almost,
is recharging.
I think that's almost testament, though, to just how difficult this track can be to get absolutely nailed. I mean, we've seen 10 drivers so far set a lap time, whether competitive or not, what you'd consider to be competitive or not. And you've got the remaining 7 drivers on the grid who are yet to set a lap time because they have either made a mistake on their first lap, are recharging for a second attempt. Just one of those very punishing circuits. You get one bit of it wrong because the next corner leads into the next, and it's all kind of that whole... You carry the speed across the whole lap. One mistake can end up really causing you a big deficit long term.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Singapore, obviously, as you said, being a street circuit, is very, very harsh. Any mistake, and there's so many corners that are just so close to the walls, and you have to be inch perfect. As well as the fact that the curbs are very high on this track. It's so easy to just lose the car and go into the wall. All these drivers are going to have to be extra careful, and that's why I think... Well, I mean, obviously, it's going to affect the racing a little bit. You might think they're being more cautious, but at the same time, if there's that risk, gonna, fuel the adrenaline, get people to go for those moves. But yeah, honestly, I do think it's going to be really good for racing. It is, I think, such a good track. I think when the drivers want to be able to do it, when the drivers want to do it, they will be able to race hard. So that'll be good. Dehar Demitrioglu is on a lap now, starting, going through the first sector, opening it up through turn 4. Very easy to lose the car on a lot of the exits of these corners as he invalidates going into turn 5. Going slightly too much over the curb there. You can see the drivers really, I mean, a lot of them have invalidated already, really struggling to push the limits as much as they can. But I mean, do you think that's going to affect them a lot in the race?
Yeah, I think track limits warnings, again, like Spain here, are going to be very crucial. Because if you do take a fair amount of curb on a lot of these corners, it can really upset the balance of your car, causing you to have a spin or a crash or a slide or something that can then be unpredictable for a car following in a race environment. And secondly, of course, because you are trying to optimize and maximize the amount of time that you can garner from every single corner on this track, with all the curbs that you can try and exploit, all of the wide entrances into tight apex, as we see people do around the bridge hairpin and whatnot, you're going to find yourself in a bit of a pickle if you are doing that frequently, especially through that turn 16, 17 complex, taking all that curb on the inside of 17. You'll definitely pick up a penalty if you're not careful about it, or you've not got the right amount of practice in just to know where that limit is, especially with your car in race fuel as well, where it's going to understeer a little bit more, and you have to over-accommodate. So yeah, there are definitely going to be mistakes to creep in. Would not be surprised if we do see them happening every now and again as well, with those kind of issues that you were just foreshadowing, really.
Yeah, it is a very difficult circuit, and we'll see how current provisional pole Nitro Shooter is going to get on as he's going through the first sector, just starting a lap as I'm seeing my greeting host. I hope everything is alright. No comments apparently left. We'll keep on that later. For now, Nitro Shooter is on the lap, going through the first DRS zone, heading into turn 7. I always get the corner names confused. Taking as much exit as he can, using as much of the track as he's prepared to. Goes purple in the first sector, so he has improved just that little bit, going through into another almost straight section, shorter section. I think Liam Stevens leaving. I hope everything is okay. Going through the old Singapore sling section into the tight left-hander coming up. Again, one that you have to move under braking, so it's really difficult to manage that braking into the DRS straight now. Heading towards turn 14, another purple sector. He's currently just under a tenth up, using all the runoff as he's daring to into this tight chicane, this little flowy chicane, getting good exit as close to the wall as possible and through the iconic Singapore tunnel. As I said, won't be there next year, very sad. Heading through the penultimate chicane, penultimate corner, getting a good exit. This is where you need that good exit, as you're going to then be braking very slightly for the last corner, being as brave as you want to be. We're going to see, has he done enough to improve? He does set a 35.4, just about a 0.2 improvement, so not a bad lap at all from Nitro Shooter, and Menno immediately following that with a 35.6, so a very confident lap time from those two guys.
Worrying that I'm seeing a lot of people leaving the session at the moment, though. As irrespective of that, just to quickly touch on Nitro Shooter's lap that we just saw there. Very good lap, but I still feel like there may have been some more on the table for him. Maybe a little bit left out with that lap. I've noticed a little bit in the second sector, maybe just went a tad deep into some of the corners. And in some of the later portions of the lap, though, really got it tidied up. That final sector was almost inch perfect on the most part. Gained nearly a 1/10.5 of a second, 1/10.5 throughout that final sector alone, which has set him now even more clear.
Yep, so just some news on the restart. I think Parc Ferme was turned off and he's looking to do a restart after quali. I'm not sure exactly what's going on. They announced a restart.
I'm sure it'll be happening soon.
And find out.
Well, in that case, I guess we'll head to a short break for a moment while we start to get some information as to what's happening. If a restart is going to occur because of the lack of Parc Ferme rules, and we are already over halfway through the session, I feel at this point probably best to just crack on with it, but I guess they feel differently. So everybody is now making their way out of the session and retiring, so we'll head to a short break, get ourselves strapped back in for another run at qualifying around Singapore. Hello everybody, welcome back. It appears that now settings have been restored and the natural world order is allowed to continue. We finally have a good qualifying session up. Despite getting nearly 10 minutes through a qualifying session, we have restarted it completely. Anyway, Singapore, forget everything you think you've seen. This is now the start of the broadcast.
It is. Welcome back, everyone. Quali, again. So we'll see what these drivers are able to do in terms of their times before. It was, 36.4 or something like that? The first time round?
35.4.
35.4. That will be the time to beat Nitro Shooter. Maybe feeling a bit, a bit bitter, a bit disappointed after that. He's got it all to do once again, but I'm sure he'll be able to do it nicely. It does give those who maybe messed up their earlier laps a little bit more of a chance to go through their laps again. So yeah, I mean, it happens. It's not the end of the world. We've got to move past it, I guess. But yeah, Singapore, it's a great track. I don't know what it is. I swear, all the tracks with S, they just seem to be so much better than the other ones, like Spain, Suzuka. Always for the best racing. Always for the best racing. We need to get one in like Scotland or something. I don't know.
Oh, no.
you don't think so?
A lot of the racetracks in Scotland are very, very narrow and pretty much predominantly for karting or bike racing, so I wouldn't recommend them for being a Formula 1 track. Definitely not FIA A-rated.
No, maybe not. But Nitro Shooter is going to be starting his first lap in Singapore. So let's go as he comes out of the final corner, getting the power down to start his lap. DRS wide open, staying all the way to the right of the track, trying to get the cleanest entry as possible, cutting the curb a little bit through turn 1 and turn 2, and he invalidates actually immediately. That's not going to be good. You've seen Menno doing that. I think it was Menno doing it earlier, where just going across the turn 2 curb. Very unfortunate for him. So that is going to immediately mess up his lap. I believe Menno, though, speaking of, is on a flying lap, just started his as well, going through the turn 5, exit turn 5, straight curve thing, which actually turn 6 does count as a corner, which is the one that we just passed into turn 7 now, using all of the curb, cutting across as much as he can, going into the really slow complex there, exiting as smoothly as he can, as he gets a little snap of oversteer there onto the straight into turn 10. The old, as I keep saying, the old Singapore sling section. They should bring that back just for fun. That'd be funny. Into the very tight, very tricky turn 13. Exiting, opening the DRS through this, again, sort of curved straight, although this one doesn't count as a corner, into turn 14. Locking up a little bit there, using as much of the tyres as he's willing to do so into this chicane where you have to get all the way close to the walls on the exit. He does make a little mistake there. I wonder how much time that's going to cost him through the tunnel now. He did make a little bit of oversteer before, so we'll see if his time is slightly impartial by that. Through the next chicane into the straight. Again, another snap of oversteer. Maybe his tyres a little too hot, or he's just putting a little bit down on the throttle, but he is going to open DRS. He's going to go P2 with that. He sets a 36 flat, which compared to what we've seen before, quite some bits off. He set a 35.6 last time around, so
yeah, in the
yeah,
previous qualifying session, yeah, much better from Menno previously, but I guess maybe a little bit flummoxed on that lap, had a couple of incidences where lost the rear of the car car didn't look particularly settled, maybe was leaning on the tyres a bit too much in the early portions of the lap and didn't quite have enough there when he got towards the end of it. Yep. Whatever it might be, it is a tough pill to swallow for Menno, as he does not really feature at the top of the timing screens, but Andre Molnar does. He has managed to make an impact in F4 last season, and are now appearing here in F3. Making his way to the top of the timing screens with a 35.629. An impressive time, but again, nothing to be snuffed at, because we have already seen faster times. And speaking of faster times, here is last week's race winner in Lillian, setting a 35.484. That is a benchmark to be beheld, as now Nitro Shooter, who was previously on that pole position, has invalidated once more in the previous qualifying session to this one. So this will be the end of these tyres, I believe, for Shooter. And potentially the end of at least this attempt, this stab at getting his way into the 35.4s as he was in the previous iteration of qualifying.
Yep, exactly. I think we're getting a little bit of almost replication of the first time we had this qualifying session, because I think 11th to 17th all invalidated their laps and are currently on recharge laps or in laps. So a bit unfortunate for them, but we are going to have this little period where no one is in the box. Singapore, probably these guys aren't too used to it. It hasn't actually been in the PSGL calendar until season 30, I believe, back on F1 21? I honestly can't remember. So, yeah, it's a bit rusty, not with these cars either. So, yeah, there's not really too much of a reference time either. I had to do a bit of digging beforehand, so I don't know exactly what we're aiming for. But yeah, it's definitely something new for these guys. So I think that's what we're seeing. Well, sorry, I think that's why we're maybe seeing them be a little bit more shaky. I don't think Singapore is too common in league races, but I think it's glad. I'm glad that it's here now.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad it's here too. Sven Schumacher then, first driver back out on track for a second stab at the Marina Bay circuit. In the Ferrari, of course, had like an okay timeout last week. Didn't really have much to write home about, really. Burning a fair amount of fuel here on this this outlap, but we'll keep an eye on him to see what comes of it. Because, of course, he'll be the first one to take a look at. Nitro Shooter also makes his way out of the pit lane. I think he's also being followed by an Alfa Romeo, which in this instance is Andre Molnar, who is leaving the pit lane following. So we're about to see second runs starting here, and then I imagine we'll get a bit of a lull before the final runs take place with about 3.5 minutes to go, because this is quite a long lap here in Singapore. It's about, well, like you see, a 1 minute 30 lap. One of the longer laps on the calendar, I think only eclipsed by Spa in overall lap time, if I'm not mistaken. I'm trying to think of a lap that is longer than a 1 minute 35.
Baku, I think it's a 139.
Maybe you could be right. Either still, top 3 longest laps, and also quite a high lap count in this race as well when it comes to it. I think it is about 35 maybe laps, I'm not sure. It is a very long race though.
Yep.
And as we explored this year, or at least in 2022 in real life Formula 1, that can prove to be a bit of a problem when the weather is less than ideal. So maybe we'll see a bit of that in the race too, but whatever happens in the race, it is still simulated, but the racing's real, so we'll get ahead and race on in the wet tyres or the intermediate tyres, because in the sim, the wet tyres aren't totally useless.
Yep, never been a big fan of that 2-hour rule, in all honesty. I always wish they went the full way, but that doesn't matter. Sven Schumacher going through the Sector 1 split, sitting at 26.7 through this tight section. I've got to keep looking at the corner numbers. Turn 9 into now going on to one of the first of the, or the second even, straight of this circuit, into the turn 10, 11, 12 complex. There, as I keep saying, it's very difficult here. It's so easy to go to the woods. It does get a little bit of oversteer when the car balances awkwardly off the curb, going through tight to turn 13, getting a good exit, opening the DRS, staying on the right side of the track. You'll see him gradually go to the left side of the track through the next corner, turn 14, using as much of the exit as he dares. You can do it there because obviously you have that space on the left side through the chicane. Again, using as much of the exit you can without going into the wall underneath the tunnel now. Pretty solid lap. Again, not seeing too many big mistakes apart from that one bit of oversteer. I think just then actually might have gone over the curb a little bit too much, but he has got the power down now. We're taking off the power now, going into the final corner. He's going to cross the line. He sets at 35.9, so about half a second off the current leader, but it's about a mid-pack time, so not too bad from Sven Schumacher.
Yeah, I think the time went away from a little bit in the final sector. Anyway, we've got Andre Molnar and Nitro Shooter on a lap at present. I'm going to take a look at Nitro Shooter. As we saw in the previous qualifying session, he has a little bit of pace to spare around here at Singapore, but so far in his first attempt of this lap, wasn't really going to work out for him. But this time, got it nailed, or at least to an extent that he's happy with for this lap, and is going to finish it up to bring home a 35.528. Still not enough to put him on pole, but it is enough to slot him onto the front row. Now, we'll see what Andre Molnar has got. As he crosses the line, it's a 5.65. That's about a tenth of a second improvement on his previous best time, which was a 35.6. Nobody else at the moment really troubling on the top of the timing screens at the very least. Andre Lopez is somebody to look out for. Had a good result last week with that P2. This lap is not looking too bad, but his connection is looking pretty untidy. The curb there could have been I think, stomached a little bit more, but as it is, got to make the best of a bad situation when you are lagging a tad, and this lap is going to be a 35.849, which slots Lopez in P5, with Klaffenbach and Schumacher in the prancing horses down behind him. I think Klaffenbach actually still on a lap here as well, taking it very aggressively. Wide entry to that hairpin corner, and now trying to get the power down for this little back straight. Again, not great for overtaking this, because I don't even think you get up to 8th gear on this back straight particularly. If this is to be believed, though, Julian Klaffenbach currently up by 0.2 of a second on his previous best time. And if the track map is to be believed, which is often not the case, it can be a lie, that was a purple Sector 2 from Klaffenbach. So we'll see whether there is still time to be gained for Klaffenbach in the final sector, as time has been gained by Lillian, again out front with a 35.2 this time.
Wow.
Really extending that gap 0.3 of a second back as Klaffenbach now rounds the final corner to set his lap time of a 35.591, a 0.3 improvement. But again, not even close. No one currently holding a candle to Lillian.
Yep, Lillian on very good form from last week. That is a monstrous lap at 35.2. Insane, in all honesty. Other people on a lap. Corn de Baker. Oh, he's invalidated.
Noel Carmen. No,
Carmen.
recharging.
Felipe Sousa, I believe. No, he's recharging.
Anybody not recharging?
No.
No.
Oh, hang on. Dehar Demetrioglu, I believe, is on a lap. No, he's not. He's not on a lap.
No.
I believe everyone is not
pedestrian.
On a lap.
Yeah. Okay, so a dead circuit at the moment then. But it is around that time where I would expect people to be getting back to the pits now for their final runs to be prepared for. They didn't make it work on this occasion. They're not going to make it work in the next couple of minutes, so better strap on a fresh set of red-banded Pirelli rubber tyres and see what you can get smacked up on this final attempt that you'll have. You'll start seeing people pouring out the pit lane not too long from now, maybe give it a couple of minutes, and then we'll start seeing those final runs coming on through. As for the moment, everybody's getting back to the pits. I think there's just one Mercedes to get back in shortly as well, which might be Noel Carmen, and then everyone's in.
Yes, exactly. Seen the chat hoping for a full wet race. That would be exciting, and also incredibly painful. But it's a shame that they don't let the spectators see the weather. I think that's something they need to add for F123, which, no talking point, that was officially announced earlier this week, which is pretty cool.
To nobody's surprise, an annual game being announced in the year.
And it's called F123, which is a big surprise. I'm sure no one expected that. But everyone now into the pits. We'll have a couple of minutes, or maybe just a minute, whilst no one's going on track. So we'll just take a bit of this time. We'll talk about in real life. So the pole time last season was a 1:49.4, which was a wet lap. It was like half wet, half dry conditions, but I'm just trying to find some sort of reference that we can almost compare these laps to. The lap record is a 1:41. Set by the one and only Kevin Magnussen in 2018, which probably won't be the same next year with the new layout, but yeah, good job from Kevin, I guess, for that. But yeah, so Singapore, it is a long track, as you stated, so don't be surprised if the Grand Prix does go on for a while, especially with safety cars and all that sort of stuff. I am seeing a few cars come out of the pit lane now. Miltos Karafoulidis and Jack Humphreys, respectively, on their way out of the pits, warming their tyres up, getting ready for this final run. Obviously, the later you can leave it, the better, because there is track evolution on this game. Really forgot the name of it. Track evolution. So yeah, both Ferraris coming out now as well. We'll see what these guys can do. They'll be hoping to knock a few tenths, maybe a couple tenths off their time. Nitro Shooter, currently in P2 with a 35.5. We saw him set a 35.4 earlier, so we know he can do that, but he's got to set a 35.2 to even have a shot at pole position, and you still got Lillian, who's going to be going on another lap as well, so Nitro Shooter and Liam Stevens as well, very close behind him. In fact, all the other guys until 6th right behind him, all in the 35.5s, need to do 3/10 of improvement at least. So the very best of luck to them. They have got quite a job ahead of them. But yeah, it is also play for in these final couple of minutes of qualifying.
It very much is as well, and I want to state again, just as we get into these final runs from qualifying, just how important your grid position will be here in Singapore. Just because there aren't really that many great overtaking opportunities, you effectively have one viable DRS straight, which is the one at the end of the first sector. Simply because the other ones, where you have DRS, you don't really get up to a high enough speed or gearing in order to actually get past somebody quite effectively, unless you have a significant pace advantage. So if you are holding on to some battery, or you are holding on to some DRS, your best bet will be down that first straight of the lap.
Yep, exactly. Just wanted to note, Bartos, one of our top 3 from last week, well, was being top 3 until the incident, hasn't settled up yet, as has Noel Carman, so all the pressure is going to be on those two guys as they aim to get somewhere up the grid, but we will talk about those on our lap now. Jack Humphreys, I believe this is his first race. Yeah, he didn't start last week. Going through Sector 1 now, through turns 7, no, not turn 7, turn 6, into turn 7. Exiting that now through this tight section. Jack Humphreys at the moment 35.7. He's gone half a tenth down in the first sector, so he's got a lot to do. All the pressure is on. He's only 2 thousandths behind Corner Baker in P8, going through turn 10 now. Jack Humphreys going through as he does cut the curb, and that's going to be his qualifying over as he invalidates his lap. Very unfortunate to him, but we will cut to Miltos Karafalidis, who is on a lap, who's just gone a 10th up into the tight left-hander as he's now exiting turn 13 in the AlphaTauri. Going through turns 14. Now, he's currently 3/10 up, so it's a mega improvement which he needs. If he can find another few tenths, that's going to put him around the top 5, so a very clean lap so far from Miltos Karafalidis. Going through the tunnel now. This is really not a bad lap from him. He looks very comfortable with the car, with the setup. Going through the final couple of corners now. We'll see if his hard work has paid off as he's going to get the power down. Going through the final corner, almost flat out. Is it going to be enough to challenge for those top few spots? It's going to be enough for P8, and that's all it's going to be. Unfortunately, we'll cut to Nitro Shooter, who's currently a 10th up, meeting, or almost meeting the goal that he needs, which is 3/10. He's a third of there. He's only got a few corners left to do it. We'll see how much he can push in these final couple of corners of qualifying. Going through the chicane, getting the power down. He needs to be brave. He needs to be bold because he needs to find a few more tenths. Has he done enough to still pole position from Lillian? It's going to be incredibly close as they go across the line. It is going to be enough as he sets a 35.211. An insane third sector from Nitro Shooter, gaining around 2 tenths on his previous time. He got 200ths up from Lillian. Julian Klaffenbach has just crossed the line, setting a 35.4.
Lillian's lap is invalidated.
Not going to improve. That's giving Nitro Shooter pole position, deservedly so, from the previous qualifying session. Very close at the top then. A stunning lap from the Haas. That's an insane pole position, but we're not over yet. Liam Stevens was a 10th up on the Sector 2 split. We'll see what he can do coming through the final few corners. Can he maybe challenge for pole position as he comes around the final corner? There's a Red Bull in the wall. That's going to be a shame for him. Liam Stevens goes up to P3 with a 35.3. A very solid lap time and a very exciting ending to qualifying here.
Yeah, only one more driver really in contention to cross the line any minute. That is going to be Rishan, who actually makes P3 out of that. What a great lap. 2 thousandths behind the front row. And in all of that chaos, Noel Carman did manage to set his first lap time, which was a 35.9, and Bartos Samaro got up to P12. So a couple of our protagonists from last time out in Spain, Andre Lopez, Bartos Samaro, both currently suffering down in P11 and P12 at the start of this race. But we have seen crazy things happen in Singapore. It could be weather dependent, could be start dependent. If the start is a bit chaotic and everything gets a bit fruity, then heaven only knows where this race could go for a lot of these people who've qualified in maybe not the position that they would have hoped for themselves. Anyway, it's going to be a great race, by hopefully speaking at the very least. We've got all the makings of what promises to be a good race. We've got Lillian slotting in P2, a dramatic qualifying session, 200ths of a second that qualifies over the first front 3. Then Liam Stevens heads the, finishes off the second row with Klaffenbach hitting up the 5th We're at the 5th position and the 3rd row with Menno slotting in just behind him. And then you've got the Hungarian duo, Matteo Longoy and Andre Molnar, filing up on 7th and 8th. Sven Schumacher and the Greek Miltos Karafolidis in P9 and P10. And then, of course, Andre Lopez, Bartos Samara, like I mentioned, as the rest of the grid then filters on out and back on down. What an interesting qualifying session, to say the least. I mean, I think the whole grid was covered by a little over 0.5 of a second. I think it was just one driver, maybe Demo Sioglu, who was just outside of that with 36.0. So yeah, really, really good qualifying session. I think there are clearly some pace differences with the top 3. I think there's a lot more to give, though, for a couple of the drivers who didn't really get the opportunity to put their laps together on time.
Yep, it's definitely a very exciting setup. Everyone looking incredibly close. As you stated, we are going to get into it. I believe we have to do a short break just before we do that, though. Am I right in saying that?
Yeah, we'll run an ad or two, and then we'll crack on back.
Welcome back. We are going to be getting underway now, as we are going to have 5 red lights. And it's lights out, and away we go for the Singapore Grand Prix. Rishan and the Mercedes getting a lightning start, and already going to be into P1 before the line. Nitro Shooter and Lillian losing places there into P2 and 3 respectively. Further back, Liam Stevens maintaining fourth. There's a few battles between the Williams and the AlphaTauri of Menno and Longa there, but Rishan with, I think he jump-started. That's why he got such a good start. That's very unfortunate for him. Just checking that. Yes, he did. He has got a drive-through penalty. So Nitro Shooter is going to be still in provisional lead, but that is so unfortunate for Rishan. Immediately jump-starting, getting a drive-through penalty. Very horrible for him. But we will keep an eye out on everyone else as we go through the first sector. Everyone pretty much maintaining positions, apart from Sven Schumacher gaining, Bartos gaining, Molnar down 2, Karafolidis down 2, but that is big for the Mercedes of Rishan. So unfortunate there. I thought he got a lightning start, but no, he's going to have to be gone all the way to the back of the grid, right behind his teammate, who is in 17th. So a nightmare start for both Mercedes drivers. Nitro, though, looking pretty decent. Got a little bit of a gap on Lillian at the moment, followed closely by Liam Stevens, but a very chaotic and unfortunate start there for Rishan.
Yeah, worse goes to worse for the Mercedes team as well. I think Noel Carmen ended up getting involved in a lap 1 incident there where he got pushed back to the back of the grid, 4 seconds now behind the rest of the field. Quick update on why we've seen Sven Schumacher and Bartos Samaro making such a good launch off the line is they are both running those medium compound tyres, which means that they are going to have the pace more, well, at least in the start portion of this race, way more pace. They're going to be able to just fly off the line. Their tyres have got more grip. They take a bit less time to come up to temperature. Rishan's race goes from bad to worse. He gets a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane on his way to serve his drive-through. That's pretty much race over for Rishan unless there is a safety car. But it is Singapore, and there is always a chance of a safety car at such a perilous track as this one. So I don't think Rishan will give up just yet. At least I hope not. It shows a little bit more of a better mentality than that. But like he was saying, off at the front, nothing really changing apart from Rishan's drive-through penalty. Liam Stevens still slotting in P3. Of course, DRS still yet to be activated. So we might see here a couple of drivers just leaning on that ERS a little bit to try and give themselves a bit more breathing room.
Yep. As you said, very perilous track. There is still a chance of a safety car. So not over for Rishan. Rishan has got a winning mindset. It was quick in all his previous seasons. So it's not over for him just yet. I'm sure we'll see him towards the points at the end of this race. But for now, it's just becoming a little bit of a train. But Sven Schumacher is actually battling with Matteo Longa. He is on the medium, so he is going to be a little bit quicker. And they are going to be going side by side into turn 14, which is quite brave from both of them to be there. A little lockup from Matteo Longa. He is going to still be alongside, though. He's using the battery, but he decides to concede. He's not going to be able to fight Sven when he is on those mediums. And right behind Matteo, he might become a little bit under pressure again, since Bartos Samaro a very quick driver as we saw last week, is also on the mediums. So we'll see what he is able to do as he goes on through the final few corners. But yeah, a little bit of a train, and I'm sure we'll see a few dive-ons. Nitro Shooter setting the fastest lap, obviously, as it's the end of lap 2 there. DRS is going to be enabled this lap, but Nitro Shooter does actually have a 7/10 gap already. So Nitro looking very quick at the front of the pack here. But yeah, not too much going on, but we'll see if there's any overtakes, any potential overtakes now. DRS is enabled, although I do think everyone is in a train, so I'm not sure who it's going to affect too much. Sven is using his battery to try and get past Menno. He's already used all of his battery, actually, as he sets a purple sector there. So clearly looking really aggressive there, really trying to make up the positions, which I guess is what he's got to do when he's on the mediums. You know, if you're doing that strategy, you have to be, you know, really maximising the mediums performance whilst you still can, compared to those guys on the hards. But yeah, just a little bit of a train at the moment forming.
Train will pretty much likely be the case for the majority of this Grand Prix now, I imagine. Nitro Shooter up front. I'd be interested to know when he got that 7/10 of a second advantage, how much of his battery he ended up deploying in order for that. But speaking of battery deployment, it is Sven Schumacher trying to make those mediums sing, and it looks to me that Menno Nielsen has just let him have that place. Because what good is it fighting with somebody on faster tyres than you, who is not on the same strategy as you? Instead, you can sit behind him and get dragged along. That's the objective here for Menno Nielsen, as Sven Schumacher is just going to try now and put the moves on his teammates. Julian Klaffenbach up ahead, but of course with no battery and these tyres going off very, very quickly, because Singapore, realistically, is a hugely intensive circuit for tyres. You can burn out a medium set of tyres very, very quickly if you're not looking after them. And you've seen already that Sven Schumacher has been really giving these ones the beans. He's been going quite hard on these mediums. And as such, I would not anticipate that he's going to have a great deal of life left in these tyres for very long.
Yep, as you stated, it is a tyre killer. The tyres, especially in the last sector, where you've got to maximise the traction, and the last corner where the tyres are screaming, the tyres are going to be absolutely dead. But Sven Schumacher, maybe might not mind. Ooh, what's
Bartos
the...
Samaro getting absolutely muscling Matteo Longe off the track. Matteo Longe hung it out around the outside off the track and is about to try and do the same thing again. Matteo Longe is not playing the same games that Menno Nielsen was with just letting the medium runner go. He wants to hold on to this position, and as such, he's let himself be exceptionally vulnerable to Andre Molner, who is now pushing on through in 9th place. And in fact, Molner has just had a little nosy up the inside of Matteo Longe as well. Longe here is not looking like he's making the wisest decisions in terms of racing. And now Korn de Backer is in. Oh no, Bartos Samaro's had an accident. It looked like he lost his front wing well before he even got into the corner. What happened there?
I don't know. Let me just have a look at the replay. That was odd. So it was going into the corner. All fine.
Did he hit the back?
He hit the entry barrier.
Oh no.
Like on the left side, so really trying to use as much of the track as he could, and that's actually cost him his race. Very unfortunate for Bartos Samaro there. But yeah, as I said, just I think a little bit too far to the left. And Andre Molnar, look, choosing not to pit. I'm sure we'll see all the medium guys into the pits now. Sven Schumacher really making the most of those mediums, but is that safety car going to hinder him? We'll see as he slaps on a new set of hards. But yeah, this is, you know, it's Singapore. Of course there's going to be a safety car. That's going to help Rushan as he pulls into the pits. Don't know what he's going to put on.
Probably going back to the hards, right, I imagine?
He's on the hards.
Oh, he's on the hards. He did drive-throughs. Maybe he's going to the mediums. I'm seeing Felipe Sousa, Andre Lopez, and Korn de Backer have all gone and switched to the medium compound tyre, as well as now Rushan. Obviously, Sven Schumacher got off of those medium tyres and onto the hards. I would not be surprised now if we see the Dutchman, Schumacher, go straight to the end on those hard tyres, because, I mean, you can make them last. They definitely won't be happy. He will be suffering at a pace deficit later on in the race. But ultimately, Schumacher has had a pit stop now, his one pit stop for the race, for free, which has absolutely helped him out compared to the rest of the field, who have to take their pit stop on these hard tyres much later on. So Schumacher is in a unique and also interesting position where his pit stop has been completely eliminated. It's just going to be a question as to how much he can stretch the advantage when these tyres have to go to the end.
Exactly. It does feel a bit odd you saying the Dutchman Schumacher. Not what I'm used to, but you're exactly right. Those hards are going to have a monumental job of making it to the end of the race. But to be honest, we'll see what he can do. You never know, there might be a safety car around 2/3 into this race or near the end, which would incredibly help him. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him take a provisional lead, or just a lead after the pit stops. Just depending, as you said, how he can make those tyres last. But yeah, definitely looking good for Sven Schumacher at the moment. Roshan still at the back, but at least he's with everyone now, and he's got a fresh set of mediums on. So we'll see what he can do with those. But yeah, safety car conditions now. We'll see what happens as the race is going to get going again.
Yeah, we should probably have about one more lap of safety car, I imagine, because the field is now almost all caught up. Looks like everybody's getting close. I mean, that little backpedaling area of Sven Schumacher backwards that was all a bit split because of the pit stops has seemingly picked back up. Sven Schumacher has rejoined the back of the field, and now Korndebacker, Kalman, Sousa, Lopez, and Roshan will all follow suit fairly shortly. So one would imagine that they're going to be okay. And to be honest, in the instance of people like Roshan, Andre Lopez, Felipe Sousa, those people who've just reached the back of the field, their tyres might be slightly more in the window than those ahead of him, because they've been sat basically in safety car, having to weave, and of course when you get to the final sector of the safety car coming in, there is this lovely little thing that the F1 game does, where it doesn't allow you to really warm up your rear tyres because it limits the amount of throttle input that you can put in. So as such, you're not really going to be able to get too much heat in the rear of those tyres, which is extremely important here in Singapore because traction is so limited out of many of these corners. It's going to be a huge advantage if you are able to keep that rear tyre temperature that you've had from just racing your way up to the back of the field.
Yep, it is a difficult thing. It's really something that you have to try and do in the middle sector without really knowing when the safety car is going to come in, which can make it incredibly difficult. But yeah, no, it's a feature there to stop you from being able to like overtake the safety car before it's in the pits. I feel like there's better ways to do it than limit your throttle because, as you said, you can't do burnout, so your tyres will be absolutely freezing. I'm already on board with Nitro, and you can see how his tyres are below 80 degrees, and it's already in the slap, and he's not going to be able to warm them up properly. So his tyres are freezing. So is Lillian's are also looking incredibly cold, so it's going to be a bit of a slippy outlap for these guys. But we'll see where Nitro chooses to go. Obviously, we've still got the entire third sector to go, being a long track that will be in quite a few seconds. But yeah, everyone looking very feisty. Those mediums are going to have a bit of an advantage on this safety car restart. It'll be much easier to get them warm than the hards.
Yeah, definitely.
So we'll see when Nitro chooses to go now, coming through the final chicane, being very cautious as he's still getting his throttle limited, and he's gone very early there compared to what I think Lillian was expecting. He's got a little bit of a gap, but to be fair, Lillian was right on that, but not going to be too much of an advantage for any particular driver. No one really close enough to go for any moves. We are seeing a bit of weaving on the straight, obviously, to warm up those incredibly cold, hard tyres, but you will see the drivers struggling for the first few corners, first sector or so, just as they get those tyres to warm up. But yeah, a good restart from Nitro, but Lillian was right on it there.
Good restart from everybody, to be fair. Pretty damn clean, and now Korndebacker is going to make use of those medium tyres as he clears Sven Schumacher. I imagine that Schumacher will just let this happen, really, as he knows he's not really in a race with these chaps behind him on the medium tyres, and he'll try and use them as an opportunity to try and clear some people in front. So those medium tyre runners get in the way, they start opening a few doors from the hard tyre runners, and of course Sven Schumacher will just look to capitalise. He's rubbing his hands, licking his lips, looking at all those greedy little places that could be coming up for him. Of course, he is going to lose out in the short term behind all of these medium tyre runners. Speaking of medium tyre runners, that's Felipe Sousa with a bit of a dive into the hairpin, but it's a nice clean move in the end. I think Schumacher saw it coming, gave him the space, and is quite happy to just follow on with this one.
Yep, late but good move there from Felipe Sousa, as you said. Not too much going on. Just interesting to watch the medium guys because you can see how much faster they are and how much more confident they are than the hard runners. But yeah, Cornerbacker having to lift off the Apex there, actually. I think he felt so much faster than Jack Humphreys ahead. But yeah, at the moment, just a chance for the medium runners to go for the moves that they need to be doing as Korn, I think, getting the overtake button on there, going to be looking for a move, not going to be quite close enough yet. But yeah, talking about Sven Schumacher as well, he's able to relax.
Oh no. Cornerbacker has caused an incident at the back of the field. He's taken out a McLaren in tow. Essentially, I was about to get onto this point. It is one of those things where you're on the medium tyres, it's very hard to judge how much faster than those ahead of you are, and as such he just went into the back of Jack Humphreys once, went into the back of Jack Humphreys twice, span round, I think it was the Williams a little bit of Dejan Demircioglu, ended up getting it a little bit sideways, and it all caused a bit of a collision on the exit of the first chicane. So unfortunately for Cornerbacker, that has gone less than well for him on this particular instance. So that's the danger of these medium tyres, you see, is you can have such a pace advantage, it can catch you out with how much faster you are than the drivers in front of you, especially under braking, especially with traction too. You don't get out of the way quick enough, you misjudge braking points, and as such you end up bumping them through the corner. You're so eager to get by because you're getting frustrated, you're being held up, and it just goes wrong. And that's I gotta be honest with you, a little bit of an error that I wouldn't expect out of F3 drivers. They've been playing this game long enough, put enough time in, raced enough races to know that these medium tyres at this stage in the race would just be that much faster.
Yeah, it's just very unfortunate that that happened. I think I'm not sure he's got damage or not. We'll see if he's pulling into the pits. But yeah, as you said, it's just the mistake that happens if you're not able to judge the pace correctly. But yeah, back up ahead, Noel Carmen just overtaking Dehard Demircioglu, not really putting up a fight at all. So yeah, not bad from Noel into P10. A couple cars behind him is Rishon, as Rishon got a big bit of oversteer there as Jack Humphreys getting a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane. He is retiring from the session. Unfortunately for him, but we are seeing some moves of Andre Lopez getting past the Williams of Dehard Demircioglu with DRS. A pretty simple move. They are very close to the back of him as Cornerbacker has left the session. He has not retired though, as Dehar actually just lost the car, I think.
No, I think
and the mediums guys going
that was a bit different actually. I think Rashan or Noel Carmen ended up punting him in the rear, and then he didn't want to come back onto the track, so ended up letting the cars by so he could rejoin safely. It's very considerate, but possibly a tad unnecessary there from Dehard Demircioglu. Either way, that is a place for Noel Carmen, I guess, and a place for Rashan and Andre Lopez. But yeah, I think just to touch back, by the way, on that whole medium scuffle that we just had, the big winner out of all of that, Sven Schumacher. Look at him, he's in P9, he's only got old hard runners ahead of him. He's big chilling.
He is. He's only got 4-lap old hards. Whether they're going to go to the end or not, I don't know. I mean, it's only a 4-lap difference between his and the guys ahead, so we'll see what happens. I'm just looking in the F3 general chat. Jack Humphreys and Cornerbacker not too happy with each other, in all honesty. So yeah, a bit of a rivalry almost forming between those two. But back into the actual race up ahead. We'll check in with the guys ahead. Nitro Shooter currently leading from Lillian, Liam Stevens, Julian Klaffenbach. Just that order. They're all chilling. They don't want to really waste anything up. They are currently relaxing. Just staying with each other. I'm sure we'll see the moves as we showed before. We'll see the moves during the pit stop, after the pit stop period, and then towards the end of the race. But yeah, looking really comfortable up ahead there. So the medium guys, though, they're going to be trying to put a pressure on that leading group. They do have a little bit of work to do. It's Andre Lopez is leading that train at the moment. Trying to catch Sven Schumacher as the two Mercedes, just letting each other through as Rishon overtakes Noel. Knowing Rishon is on those faster tyres, he's going to want to try and challenge Andre and then Sven as he catches up, but it's going to be really difficult for Andre to catch up despite having the tyre advantage, purely because Sven's in a DRS train He's got that less drag and more boost. Well, yeah, the less drag, sorry, giving more of a boost. So potentially those medium runners, with that little scuffle that we had earlier, a little bit more phased, a little bit more as a disadvantage now. So we'll see if Andre is able to catch up, because you can see he's getting time in the middle sector, the corner one, but as soon as the DRS and the straight line speed sections are there, he's just losing out because he hasn't got the slipstream or the DRS. So we'll see what happens to him now, but I think he's using his battery, nearly getting the gap to a second.
Yeah, you are very, very correct. This is, yeah, I think an interesting moment in time here. I think we're at a bit of a turning point in the race with these medium runners. I think we can realistically discount these guys at the moment. I don't think they're really going to be featuring in the end of the race because of the mediums, unless there is a safety car, of course, in which point they'll obviously be allowed to re-feature. But going onto the mediums so early pretty much locks you into doing a two-stop at the very least, and at the moment, with them all kind of being grouped towards the back of the field, if you were really going to make this strategy work, you'd want to be a little bit further up. You'd want to be maybe sitting in like P7, so you can try and make some time up through your better tyres, but at the moment, you're just losing out now to all the hard runners because you missed the train, you're not going to get on it, and as such, it's just left the station without you. So they're all in a bit of a race for themselves for what looks to be the final point at the moment. I still think the masterstroke that is yet to unfurl is that of Sven Schumacher. Things at the front will also, I think, remain pretty stagnant until we get towards a pit stop phase for the guys on the hard tyres, at which point we might start to see things change. That's when it all kicked off last week in Spain, if you recall, when people started coming out the pit lane on cold tyres, fighting with one another, causing crashes that completely changed the complexion of the race. That kind of thing is bound to happen, but at the moment at the front, it's starting to look a little bit more spread out. Drivers struggling to stay within DRS, or maybe just not trying as hard to, switching off a little bit because they know that there's really no chance of a move being made. I don't really know whatever you want to call it, but it's looking a bit drab and a bit dry at the front of the field.
Yep, just looking at the back, Andre very close on the margin to the DRS. I'm sure if he gives it a bit of battery, he'll be there for the Sector 1 DRS. And he's going to have the traction advantage, so I think he's going to be in there now. I was just thinking whether it'd be worth Richon even going ahead just to have a crack at it. But yeah, no. Andre was comfortably back in there. He has now lost out again. It is 1.1 again. So Andre really struggling to get him there. Just learning that Matteo Longa is actually Nicholas's little brother. That is pretty cool. Hi, Nicholas, as well in the chat. Andre, though, is so close to that DRS. He's really got to be pushing. He's got to be using his battery because he's just going to be losing out tyre conditions as well. Because it's going to be just taking everything out of him just to get into the DRS zone. So I don't know why he's not wanting to use his battery, but he is going to be... Oh, he's such on the cusp. I'm just watching that timer as he's there. He's just missed out again. I think it was 1.004 thousandths of a second behind the DRS then. So he's really struggling. Well, not struggling, he's on the cusp there, but I don't know why. He just needs to use a little bit of battery and he could easily be there.
I think the thing is, right, so you're on the medium tyres, you don't want to use as much battery as possible because you want to save that for the overtake, so you want to lean on the pace advantage you have from the tyres. But because you don't have DRS, you're practically losing, let's say, like 2 to 3 tenths a lap, basically, because you can't keep up in a straight line. So you have to really try and use the tyres a bit more, and if he's got an unwillingness to use the battery because he wants to save it for the overtake that inevitably will be coming, I mean, that makes as much sense as anything else, I think, here. But this time around, it looks like Andre Lopez has managed to secure DRS for himself, just within that window, and it seems that there is a little bit of a gap forming. Matteo Longa has started to drop off Andre Molnar and Miltos Karafalidis, who are both respectively a second back from one another. And then up ahead of Matteo Longa, Menno Nielsen is also starting to fade a little bit from Klaffenbach in the front four. So maybe there is a little bit of a pace advantage starting to appear. We speculated there might be as much after qualifying, just because of how starkly different the times were. So I'd imagine here that this is where we're getting into the phase of the race where the tyres may not be feeling so good for the hard runners. If you've been able to look after them, or you've been able to make them, feel a little bit better, or you've got a bit more practice in, a bit more pace, this is about the time of the race where we're really going to start seeing that kind of chasm exacerbated, I suppose.
Yeah, it just depends how much Menno is able to stay in the DRS, and Matteo Longa just dropping out of the second window there. I mean, as I said earlier, you know, using the battery to get back in, I do feel like it's important because, I mean, maybe not for the mediums. I think you are right there. They should just be able to use the tire advantage to do it. But here, I think it's definitely important to be able to stay within that DRS, because if you can, then that's going to help you so much towards the end of the race, because you'll have a pace advantage. Maybe not on the guys ahead, because you might not be able to overtake them, but you'll you'll have an advantage on the guys behind. So Matteo Longate dropping 3/10 in this final sector. I think he needs to get a bit of a move on, in honesty, to try and get into the DRS again. It's going to be very difficult from here, but to be fair, he's also dropping Andre Molnar and Miltos, the gap staying at around a second, 8/10, 9/10 behind Matteo. But yeah, Matteo losing out a little bit here, and as you said, the pace difference is starting to form. Even up ahead, Liam Stevens has just seen himself about a second behind Lillian, and Julian a second behind him. So definitely some gaps starting to form, but there is no gap between Lilium and Nitro, staying below half a second. So those guys both, we saw in quali, they were so equal with their times, both incredibly quick drivers, and we are really starting to see that. I wonder if that's maybe the tyre wear. That's for some reason, or that's like somehow enabling the differences to be bigger. Maybe they've managed their tyres differently. I mean, yeah, I don't know the exact physics explanation, but I'm sure it's something along those lines.
I think what you start to see is the drivers who are more comfortable on the track, who have a little bit more pace, they can handle the car better, they can handle the track better when the grip starts falling away from them a little bit more. And as such, I think Liam Stevens, as you can see from the red light flashing, has been trying to use a lot of ERS to compensate for the lack of pace that he's sort of having. I mean, in qualifying, I think he was about a tenth and a bit behind pole, whereas Lillian was only 200ths behind. And you'd imagine that Rishan would be making further progress with the pace that he demonstrated in qualifying as well, but maybe that just hasn't translated into race pace here. Klaffenbach was kind of doing well, but not really doing much. Andre Molnar has retired, and Matteo Longay has dropped out of contention. What has happened here? Okay, he's come into the pit lane, but has he got any damage? No, it's just a pit stop for the medium tyres. Okay, well, it's pit stop time. There is a safety car out on track. I'm not sure whether it's VSC. Oh, no, it is a full safety car.
How has that happened? I did not see exactly what happened.
Andre Molnar?
My guess is he maybe had some sort of incident with his front wing, which... Oh, no, not his front wing. That's probably why he's out. He's not in the pits. Did he retire in the pits?
Not as far as I'm aware.
I probably crashed out then, so a mistake. I didn't exactly see Alex saying he'd been in the last corner, possibly. If so, that's very unfortunate. I don't think he was looking too strong, but I mean, either way, it's still potential points lost for Alex Molnar. But that is going to be interesting in terms of pit stops. Are these guys going to try and get the mediums to the end now? I mean, it's still 17 laps or so to go. We'll see. And I mean, you know who this is perfect for? Sven Schumacher. If he has a fresh set of mediums, he could put those on, and he's now equal to everyone else.
I think he does have a fresh set of mediums, as a matter of fact, because they did update the tyre allocations, if I'm not totally mistaken.
But if, at the same time, if he doesn't pit, he's keeping the same strategy, but he's going to have fresh mediums right behind him. I'm struggling to think what's Sven to do here.
I think Sven should box for fresh mediums myself, because you've got to imagine the safety car is going to be out for, let's say, 3 laps, so by the time it comes in, we'll be starting lap 18. That brings us a little bit close to that overall thing, and to be honest, you've made up the positions that you suffered by in qualifying, so if everyone's on the same thing, then you're all, you know, it's all to play for. You put all the cards out on the table. By staying on the hard tyres when the safety car is out, he doesn't really gain anything, and he's staying out.
He is staying out, so he wants track position. I mean, it is a track difficult to overtake on, but he's got 10 lap hold hard. As Andre Lopez gets a 5-second time penalty for speeding in the pit lane, as Richard gets one for a severe collision with Andre. Not sure what happened there.
No idea.
Chaos in the pit stops, but Sven Schumacher and Noel Carmen as well, both staying out, so they're choosing track position over the tyre advantage, or maybe if there's a later safety car, that's gonna impact it massively, as Matteo Longay also gets a 5-second as he's retiring in the pit lane. Very unfortunate for him.
Interesting that Longay was coming back through the pit lane after already having his car serviced the lap before, so I don't know if something wasn't right, or if there was damage to maybe the rear wing or the side pod, one of those permanent damages that you can't fix. Either way, not really what you want to see here. For Sven Schumacher and Noel Carmen, they are going to be seriously under threat from pretty much everybody else behind them who is going to be on significantly faster tyres. The only question, I suppose, that remains will be, do those mediums go off fast enough that the damage isn't too bad?
You know what? If they both still have to pit, then they could have... Because those hards, I still can't see them really making them to the end. Those mediums, I highly doubt will make it... Well, actually, it will be very close at the end. There'll definitely be a lot of tyre wear. So if they both have to pit again, then Sven and Schumacher and Carmen have really aced this, I think. But I'm not sure. We can't see their tyre wear.
Yeah, the gap might be a bit hard to make up as well. I mean, you got to think. So we had 3 laps behind the safety car initially for the first incident, which Sven Schumacher then, that's 3 laps basically into this race that he hasn't used these hard tyres. Another 3 laps now that he'll have done it. So that's 6 laps accumulatively that Schumacher hasn't really made use of these hard tyres. They're probably not in a bad way at this stage in the race, I'm going to go ahead and say. He hasn't really been making moves. He hasn't really been fighting with anybody. These hard tyres might not be in a bad spot, to be honest with you. But again, every lap that stays behind the safety car, the mediums are just getting more and more free laps to come into their window, really. Yep,
that's true. That's true. Yeah, I think, especially because they're 11 lap old, 12 lap old even, hard, it's going to really put them under threat.
They're definitely going to lose out to the medium tyre runs behind them initially.
Yeah.
But the question is whether in the long run, those medium tyres start to really peter off. Now, I don't really have a great frame of reference here for how the medium tyres work at Singapore, whether they do fall off within, let's say, 10 laps. Because if it is 10 laps, then there's going to be about 4 laps worth of racing in which the hard tyres, even though they might be a bit rough by that point, might be okay. Whether you want to go on to another set of mediums is a different question, because you're going to find yourself about 20 seconds behind the rest of the field. And not only have you got to make up those 20 seconds in 3-4 laps, or maybe more than that, you've got to overtake the field as well. It just doesn't really seem feasible. So your options here are pray for another safety car, pray that the mediums die, or fight with every inch of your tyres and every inch of your car for absolute damage control.
Yep. Just been reading the chat as well. What people have been saying, maybe Schumacher and Coleman working together to potentially defend from the medium guys behind, which could really help them towards the end of the race. So the tactics really coming into play here. I'm almost hoping for the underdog. I want the Schumacher and Coleman to be able to do this, but it's going to be so difficult because there's fresh mediums compared to 12 lap old hards. It's a big difference. So yeah, he's going to be under mad pressure from all the guys behind. Safety car is going to be in this lap. I'll let you talk over as that happens, but just again focusing on the tyres. Nitro is going to probably have warmer tyres, and he's going to have just a general tyre advantage. So it's going to be really exciting as these guys get underway.
Yeah, this is going to be a really tough, restart for the 2 hard tyre runners. But it's going to be interesting nonetheless to see how they respond. Of course, Schumacher is going to get a little bit of space because he has Noel Carmen behind. Now the question is, how long can Coleman keep these medium tyre runners behind? Can he hold them off for 2 laps until the DRS comes in? What is he going to be able to do? Because if he just gets mugged immediately, that really does throw any kind of hopes of defense out the window. So it's all to play for here. Going to be a very difficult, very tricky, tumultuous restart. Trying to get the heat in the tyres, and that's going to be tough for the hard tyre runners, but it looks like Sven Schumacher has pulled the pin. Everybody else in unison. Nitro Shooter already straight on that ERS. Now going to try and get the moves put onto Noel Carmen into the braking zone. Closes up massively because of the tyre difference. Those fresh mediums have just got so much more grip, both under braking and now under traction. A slide from Coleman, a slide in sympathy from Shooter. because neither of them have the temperature in the rear tyres, but look at the traction difference right here. Now with the ERS on, now in the slipstream, Shooter tries to go up the inside of Carmen into turn 6, but it's going to be difficult now in the left-hander. He's going to have to try and hang it around the outside, hang it off the track. Is that move going to be made off the track? Will that be looked at by the stewards after the fact? The battle's still enduring, though, because Carmen now up on the inside. We'll get to see this from Lillian's point of view. Carmen has been done and dusted, and now Lillian takes the move onto Carmen. The Alfa Romeo slots into third place. All eyes now on Schumacher at the front of the field. Has he got what it takes to defend? Because behind him, it has been muggings left and right. This is a rough neighborhood to try and walk through, Schumacher. As now, Nitro Shooter is right on your tail. Was deploying some battery, thought better of it. Gonna let you use some of yours as they now come into the corners to get themselves started back up for a final lap. I don't think there's going to be another overtaking opportunity here for Shooter. He's very, very close to the back of Sven Schumacher, though, almost a bit too close for comfort. We've already seen this race, what can happen when there is a huge tyre difference, a huge pace difference on the tyres. It ends in tears. I just hope we don't see that again here with Nitro Shooter. There's a yellow flag being waved in Sector 3. I think that's for Demircioglu, who's had a bit of an incident. I'm not sure with whom. But either way, it's looking good here for the run. Nitro Shooter has to back out of it, I think, because Schumacher defends well. Schumacher now coming back across as Shooter slides up the inside. No real defense offered, but again, almost completely all four wheels off the track there on the inside for Shooter. And now Lillian is going to try and come through in sympathy. Got the ERS on. Now going to try and throw it up around the outside of this corner. That's risky, that's ballsy, but they still stuck it in there. And because the traction and the space wasn't there on the outside for Schumacher, Lillian slides on by, but Schumacher's not done yet. He's coming back, switching to the left-hand side. He's up the inside. It's tight and he's round! Schumacher with an ambitious lunge, and it's all gone to tears. The hard tyres have not paid off. The gamble is over, and the medium tyre runners now have got it all to fight with.
Yep, really 0-0 there for Sven Schumacher. That is so disappointing. He was looking really feisty. I think he was going to lose a position to Liam Stevens as well, but that would still put him in the top 5. So unfortunate for him. I mean, you can see what the hard tyres have done. Noel Carmen is already down in P7. He's been overtaken by his teammate, and he's still got more pressure. But as well as that, Sven Schumacher, though, without a front wing left end plate, I wouldn't be surprised if he retired in the pits, in all honesty. That's very unfortunate for him. It was a risky strategy, but it wasn't... Yeah, I feel very bad for him. It's very unfortunate, but up ahead, we do have Nitro Shooter now with the lead. Lillian in P2, followed by Liam Stevens, and then 1.3 seconds behind. So that overtaking did cost Julian Clapperbox some time, because he, as I said, 1.3 seconds behind Liam Stevens. DRS is going to be enabled, so Julian now losing out because of that. That might be harshening his podium attempts once again. An incident, not really his fault, costing him a potential podium. So not too lucky there, and he is going to be outside of the DRS, as is Rishnan right behind him, also with a 1.3 second gap, but he's got fresh mediums, as well as Clapperbox. He's still looking to get into this race. He does have a 5-second time penalty, though, for that collision under the safety car, which we didn't get to see. But, yeah, a bit of battling between Felipe Sousa and Noel Carmen. Again, those hards not really able to do much for Noel Carmen as he's trying to get back past, but he's just not able to do it. So, the hard tyre gamble, really not the right call, has not worked. Very unfortunate for both Carmen and Schumacher.
Yeah, I think we're going to see Coleman just continue to drop back further and further now. I think he's pretty much guaranteed at this point to get points. It's just going to be a question as to how many points that is. Risham has retired. Has he crashed? He has.
He has.
Ooh.
Oh.
Okay.
That's going to be a safety car.
It is, and I wouldn't then. Maybe Schumacher is just counting his lucky stars, because this puts him back into contention. Let's look at the tyre situation. These guys... all on fresh mediums, or relatively fresh mediums. The question is, you pit for another set of mediums and go again. I mean, you've only got 4 laps on them, but that's 4 laps that you're going to have back, right? And they're going to be on the safety car for about another 2 of these, so that's going to put you up to lap 22. You've got 9 laps to go on medium tyres, realistically. And it looks like Lillian was faking it, but they've all decided that they're going to go around again. Now, Schumacher is on even fresher medium tyres than everybody else. Also... by 5 laps, really. is there a chance that Schumacher can come back into this one now?
I mean, he's not going to pit, so he's definitely not pitting. He's on fresh mediums. They will definitely take him to the end. But he's definitely back in this. He's got a chance at points. So, I mean, fair play to him. He's going to still be in P10, I believe. I can't see him overtaking Korn to Baker. But this does give us a bit of an exciting end, as it's going to be all close again between the top 11. They'll all be on relatively fresh mediums. Obviously, P1 to P6, they did pit under safety car. So they will have about 6 laps... 6 laps older mediums, which, to be fair, could be quite important to those guys behind. So we'll see if that has any effect. It will certainly be close between those guys. But yeah, it does give us a bit of exciting end. It does bring Schumacher back into it. So yeah, we'll see what happens now. Very unfortunate for Richard, the Mercedes not getting the lap they need. But to be fair, Noel Carman has not come off too badly, as he is now in P7 with the freshest mediums, much fresher mediums than the guys ahead of him. So fair play to him.
Yeah, this is an interesting situation here for Coleman and Schumacher specifically. I'd be interested to see what they have in the locker. I think Schumacher has more pace than Kornbacher just naturally. Coleman is putting himself in a really, really strong position, being the guy who is on those fresh medium tyres, and everybody else ahead of him is on 5 or 6 lap old mediums. I don't, again, know or have any frame of reference on how hard these mediums come down. And with another couple of laps behind the safety car here, it gives the mediums a couple of laps extra life too. So I think you've got to consider that most of the laps these mediums have raced so far has been in safety car conditions. So it'd be interesting to see just how they end up performing. I think Andre Lopez on the hard tyres, though, can be pretty comfortably discounted.
Yep, I'm surprised he didn't pit for mediums. Maybe he doesn't have any fresh ones left, or I don't know. But yeah, refusing to go into the mediums. But up ahead, we'll just talk about the top guys. Nitro, Lillian, very quick. Those two, I think they have just a natural pace advantage. So we'll see what they can do. We're going to have about 9 laps of racing when we do go ahead. So it will just be all or nothing for the guys ahead.
Kornbacher is pit because I think he went on to used mediums rather than fresh ones.
Oh. What's he gone on to now?
I don't know yet. I mean, it was on 12-lap old mediums, so I'm guessing that wasn't correct. Andre Lopez has gone back onto 4-lap old mediums. Unless Kornbacher has actually just come out of the pits on 12-lap old mediums. Is that what I'm seeing?
Yeah, what was he on before then? I'm confused now.
Yeah, why has he gone back into... I don't know.
Wait, let me just double check.
I've no idea.
he was on 4-lap old mediums. Now he's on 12-lap old mediums.
Okay. Well, good night to his race hopes.
No idea what's going on.
GG on that front, I guess.
He is an AI. He retired. He left the session earlier on, I think.
Oh.
I don't think that's actually him driving. I might be wrong. He might have rejoined again.
Interesting. Anyway, we're going to get to a point now. I think restart should be happening end of this lap. Despite the fact that the 2 Red Bulls haven't caught up to the field, I think the restart should be happening around now. The safety car's been out for long enough. I think that's usually the window at which this thing starts to come on in. So as soon as we get to the end of Sector 2, we will soon find out. If we continue on behind safety car for another lap, then so be it. I think that only helps out the drivers who have been on these medium tyres for a while.
Yeah, we are...
Are we coming in?
Are we in this lap? It normally says at the start of Sector 3.
Plenty of time now, right?
Should be.
Don't think we're in this lap.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to tell us really late, because it does do that sometimes.
That's true. I think the Red Bulls is just a little bit too far behind, though. Oh, we have another lap to discuss matters.
Yeah, to just analyse exactly what's going to happen here. I mean, let's just look back. I think the front of this race has been relatively uneventful. Nitro Shooter and Lillian haven't really put the moves on one another. Liam Stevens has kind of just been a comfortable third. He's not really had the pace of the front two. Obviously, when Rushan jumped the start, that kind of threw a spanner in the works for whether this was going to be a 3 or a 2-horse fight. Klaffenbach also hasn't really massively impressed. He's just been nicely consistent and there or thereabouts. So, yeah. As the way I see it, I think Nitro Shooter here and Lillian are the two hopefuls for the race win, but there's still a lap to go, of course.
Yep, I do agree with you. I mean, unless they have a tussle and they're not taking each other out like that, like what happened last week, but I hope not. Nitro is looking very pacey here, as is Lillian. We'll see if Lillian can get back-to-back wins, because that would be a massive advantage on the championship. Even getting second is just a massive advantage. We do only have 11 runners left, so it is all to play for in terms of points. Pretty much everyone will get it. Yeah, so Nitro going to be leading this race as we get away shortly. We'll just go through the current order to update you now. We've got Lillian in P2, 7-lap-old mediums. Liam Stevens with the 7-lap-old mediums in P3. Klaffenbach in P4 with the 7-lap-old mediums. Menno in P5. Again, 8-lap-old mediums. Well, not again, no, 8-lap-old mediums. And 6, Felipe Sousa with 8-lap-old mediums. And then, this is where it gets exciting, because we have Noel Carmen in P7 with 2-lap-old mediums, followed by Miltos Karafalidis, 3-lap-old mediums, so Schumacher, 3-lap-old mediums, Andre Lopez with 5-lap-old mediums, and the AI of Condor Baker, I believe it is the AI, with 5-lap-old mediums. Safety car is in this lap though, so we will be getting away again very shortly. So we'll see what goes on here. We'll see when he decides to go. In the previous restart, he went just after even the penultimate corner. No, sorry, just before the penultimate corner. So we'll see what he does again. Cold mediums will not be faring him too well. So watch out for Noel Carmen as well on those fresher mediums, if he's able to do anything with that. But we'll see as Lillian waits eagerly for Nitro to get away. We'll see when he decides to do it. It's gonna be now, as he goes again at the same place as he did before, not really catching Lillian sleeping. Lillian right on the action there. Lillian is not going to be close enough to move though. He's going to have to settle for P2 at the moment as Nitro goes through the first couple corners. Might be interesting to think about the track limits and that sort of situation, because obviously we can't see the penalties. We'll see if anyone has any going towards the end of the race, but at the moment Nitro Shooter looking really comfortable ahead of Lillian, as Lillian using the battery to try and get ahead or try and just get close to Nitro Shooter, who's looking incredibly confident on those tyres. He knows he can push. He knows that there's not that many laps left of the race, so we'll see what Lillian is able to do.
Indeed we will. Oh, what an exciting restart. It's all cooking up. I'm very excited, man. This is going to be a good end to the race, hopefully by all accounts. I mean, Lillian's still right there in the wheel tracks of Nitro Shooter as well. This is fruity. Fruity.
Yep, we'll see. Lillian looking very much down the rear diffuser of Nitro. Going down actually a little bit further, we've got Noel Carmen and Felipe Sousa fighting. I said watch out for Noel Carmen on those fresher mediums. He's trying to go around the outside of turn 14, and you know what? He might just do it as he gets the power down, but Felipe is going to have to give up the position, and that's going to be P6 now for Noel Carmen. So looking very confident on those fresher mediums there. We'll see if he's able to get into the top 5, potentially even a podium, which would be a very good result considering he started pretty much last.
Yeah, pretty much all the way down the order, right? Had a nightmare qualifying.
A horrible start. He was pretty much he was last with a few seconds gap at the end of lap 1, so he's had a brilliant comeback nonetheless, I think.
Yeah, from 16th to 6th so far, this is looking like a real sterling drive from Noel Carmen in the Mercedes. We were worrying at the start of the race just how it was going to be all woes for the Mercs, but it seems to be that this has improved quite dramatically for the Merc driver here. Looking back a bit further, we've got Sven Schumacher still trying to make his way past Miltos Karafalidis, getting close onto that rear gearbox, just 0.2 less than that of a second between the pair of them. Bit of a snap of oversteer. Don't want to lose it there. That would be almost certainly curtains for your race this evening that you've raced so hard and so far to keep yourself in the pocket, really. So we'll keep an eye on Schumacher's progress, most especially when DRS reactivates, as to whether we're going to see people just running out of time or running out of tyres. That's going to be the big question for me.
Yep, Lillian almost looking like might be struggling a bit for pace here. He's just about at the 9/10 gap. to be fair, Nitro's used, actually they're pretty much equal on ERS, with about a 7/10 gap. So I don't know, potentially Lillian struggling, or just having a bad couple sectors. I mean, it's not really exactly clear what it means, but Nitro for certain is looking very confident, looking very comfortable for what he wants to do, and he wants to win this race. So yeah, looking very comfortable again, as I said, up ahead in the lead at the moment. But yeah, so potentially Lillian struggling. DRS is enabled this lap. Lillian just about in the gap, as Liam Stevens using his battery just to make sure he can get that rear flap open when he wants it. Behind him, Klaffenbach, Menno, Noel Carbon all in a train, and a little bit further behind is Felipe Sousa, who has come out of DRS, but Lillian is going to have the DRS, which is the important thing to notice here. So good job to him getting back into this.
Well, I'm not sure about the yawning. The race is not a snooze fest just yet, but the front is an absolute snooze fest, and it has been all race. No one has changed positions yet, but we're surely getting to that point in the race now where we are going to see a little bit of action happening with just 5 laps to go. We've got DRS available now. We should be seeing some overtakes, but Nitro Shooter has been commendably so in control of this race pretty much from the very beginning. We had a little bit of speculation when that first safety car happened as to whether Schumacher might be able to get the net lead, but so far that hasn't materialized, and it doesn't look like it's going to. Nitro Shooter pretty much has led from lights out, apart from obviously when Rishan jumped the start, so we'll ignore that. But Nitro Shooter has really been the one to pull away and to command this gap. He's always had just enough between him and Lillian to keep Lillian behind. Lillian hasn't really had the opportunity for a particularly aggressive or even half an opportunity for an overtake. There's been no dress rehearsals, if you know what I'm saying. Yep. Nitro Shooter has just been clearly ahead for the majority of it, and most of that time, of course, is being made just up on pace. Lillian has had the benefit of DRS for the best part of this race so far. Of course, safety cars precluding a lot of the DRS that he's been able to run. But despite all of that, Liam Stevens has still been able to cling on as well, despite the fact that these two have been showing a clear, distinct pace advantage. And Klaffenbach, whilst he has had his moments of dropping outside that DRS, at least for the moment in time, is sticking within that window.
Yes, he is. Lillian, I'm just watching him. He's within 4/10 of Nitro, so forget what I said about any pace disadvantage. Lillian looking fairly confident. I think he's just biding his time. He doesn't want to make the move too early. He has had to use a bit of ERS though. It's the only thing I'm a little bit cautious of. But yeah, Lillian not looking too bad to go for the win towards the end of this race. Getting a little bit of snap of oversteer there, but nothing too big. Looking at Noel Carmen as he aims to overtake Menno. Menno, I think he just went side by side with Menno going into turn 13, but yeah, not quite able to do any move yet. It is, as it's been for a lot of this race, just a bit of a train at the moment, just waiting to see when someone goes for a move. But don't worry, because fairly soon as we get to the end of this race, that's when drivers are going to want to be making these moves. So we'll see what they do. Liam Stevens, nearly out of the DRS, and he just managed to get back in. He's only on 6% battery, so he's had to use a lot of as much as he can. He's had to use a lot of battery just to get back into that 1 second window. But I think he's going to be out again now. So Liam Stevens has dropped back, probably out of contention for the win now. That DRS is so crucial. And he's also going to be under pressure from Julian Klaffenbach. I think Liam Stevens just hit the wall in the exit of that corner. Let's hope he didn't get any damage. Condor Baker gets a 3-second... Oh, sorry. No, I think it's AI.
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
No, he's still racing pretty close to the back of Andre Lopez, so I wouldn't say it's AI, but...
Actually, to be fair...
We've got moves going on here, by the way. Miltos Karafalidis is currently duffing up Felipe Sousa. Now Sven Schumacher is trying to find a way through as well. Felipe Sousa is not having any of this, is trying his best to hold on, but his tyres are just that much older than Karafalidis and Schumacher. Now, Karafalidis and Schumacher have been at each other's throats for the majority of this little cuffle so far. Andre Lopez is now trying to force his way through in a very unconventional overtaking spot, and I think that's just put Andre Lopez out of the race. Oh, it's going to be too late for a safety car now, though. It's just... Oh, my goodness, what's going on? Corn Tobacco is just driving like a maniac. What a move was
It's a
that?
safety car.
It is a
Oh,
safety car. Well, it's going to be a one-lap safety car. It's going to be a one-lap safety car because the game doesn't allow the safety car to stay out so much. What the hell's going on in the midfield there? That was just carnage. What silly driving that was out of some of the drivers there. It was mental. Completely unnecessary. I was gonna, before we got into all that, do a little ERS check on the drivers at the front, but now we all know what it's going to be. Everybody's going to have 100%. It's going to be a straight blast in the final few laps. Shooter can't pit. Lillian obviously can if he wanted to go to the soft tyres. Same with Liam Stevens, but I don't think anybody is going to. Maybe Felipe Sousa will because he's just had his wing broken by Corn de Baca sending it up the inside. This is... some poor racing, I can't lie, for PSGL Tier 3 in the midfield there, towards the end of the race. People are getting a little bit desperate, a little bit too feisty for position.
Yeah, I think a track like Singapore, you know, the nerves are high, the adrenaline is high. It's so easy to make a mistake, so it's just unfortunate, especially when it affects other drivers. But at the end of the day, you know, you got to take it on the chin and just move on, because we are going to have a very exciting end to this race now. Everyone is again pushed together. Corn de Baca and Felipe Sousa on the softs are gonna try and salvage, or try and, you know, really make a comeback here and get some points.
They're gonna get points anyway, but I see.
Yeah, I mean, like, more points than they would have, because they were at the back, not really looking at any chance of getting, you know, P8, P7. But they have been given another chance here. But
they are gonna have to get a wiggle on. By
yeah, I'm just thinking that they need to catch up, because if it's in this lap, as you said, which I think it is. Yeah, that's going to be close. I think that'll be fine, actually. But yeah, it'll definitely be close.
Yeah, they're going to need to get a bit of a wiggle on, because otherwise they're not going to be within, like, even close to the back of this field. I mean, we are only just now halfway through the middle sector. This lap is so long, and the safety car periods in it are also so long. I mean, just thinking about how long we've been racing here, it's been over an hour. This race has been going on.
Oh, wait, are they going to have their throttle limited? Because that is going to really...
so the guys at the back who are a little bit far back in the field, I don't think are going to.
Okay, good. Because they're going to be able to catch up then.
I think so. Yeah, they are. Okay, you can see that gap just tumbling. Jesus Christ. Yeah, so, but everybody else, especially at the front of the field, going to have their throttle limited, especially in this third sector. This is, yeah. This is going to be... I have a feeling that if Corn de Baca is putting mad moves on the mediums, this might be a little bit more worrying. Sven Schumacher needs to be peering in his mirrors. But we'll keep our attention pride to the front of the field, because that's where the real points are. That's where the 25 points are. At the moment, those 25 points are going to be going back home with Nitro Shooter in the Haas. Of course, the Alfa Romeo behind, ready to go. But, oh, it's a really poor restart from Lillian. Got it all kinds of wrong. Shooter timed that to perfection. And now Lillian really has to hustle. Has to get the foot down. And Liam Stevens might even be looking for an opportunity here. Whilst Lillian was sleeping, Nitro Shooter was out there working. That's the difference between you and me. I've got work doing all the time, and you out here doing nothing. Nilch. Nada. Anyway.
Exactly. Nitro just went... I think Lillian was expecting... He was still warming up his tyres, and Nitro's gone the same place that he's gone every single restart, so I don't know why Lillian wasn't really on it. But we're talking about Schumacher. Schumacher's dropped down to P10, but we will have a look at the guys ahead, because Liam Stevens looking very feisty at the back of Lillian. They've only got 2 laps, so they need to be using their battery now. And there's actually been a collision between the 2 soft runners. Felipe Sousa called in 9th and 10th. Very unfortunate.
Who could have seen that coming?
Yeah, that's coincidental, very horrible for both of those. They are still fighting, but we'll keep our eyes pinned on the top guys. But Nitro Shooter has now got 1.5 seconds, looking very comfortable. And you know what? Fair play to him. He's absolutely bossed this restart. And now Lillian is going to be under pressure from Liam Stevens, although I just think Lillian should be able to hold on. He's got that pace advantage. Yeah. Liam's going to have to use a lot of ERS anyway, but I mean, look at Julian Claffenbach, Menno, they're all going to, and Noel Karma, so very much at the back of Menno, all going to be trying to go for moves, so any mistake now is going to be punished, and, you know, anything you can do, anything that goes negatively can really impact your position now, so we'll see what happens. Nitro Shooter has got 1 lap to go as he's going to come across the line to start the final lap of this Singapore Grand Prix, and Lillian is nowhere to be seen. So, Yeah, unfortunate for him.
Yeah, but I gotta say, that was a bit of genius there by Shooter. I'm just looking back at it on the live stream, and by the looks of things, it looked like, I think I mentioned by somebody in the chat, it was very, very slow from Shooter in that final sector, and I think it caught Lillian with his pants down a little bit. Pants around his ankles, couldn't really get him back up in time, tripped and fell, and ended up a second, nearly 2 seconds now behind Nitro Shooter. So it has been a great race from Shooter, and to be honest, despite the fact that Lillian has always been there or thereabouts, he was never really under threat, never really under siege, never really too troubled or worried. As Liam Stevens is looking like at the moment, at the very least, he's going to hold on for a podium, but it's not going to be much more than that. Julian Klaffenbach is really trying to get that Ferrari back up onto the boxes, but unfortunately for him, the Alpine just seems to have the edge at the moment, not really reeling him in too much. There is a bit of an ERS difference, but not by all that much, to be honest, because they're both using their battery, they've both got nothing left, everybody has drained everything that they have got, and as such, I have a feeling this might be how the cookie crumbles. It has been an interesting race all around for everybody, lots of safety cars, lots of carnage, lots of nonsense. But in the end, it looks like it is going to be Nitro Shooter.
Yep, it does. Nitro Shooter has driven a brilliant race. He's also, I believe, going for fastest lap this lap, so he's drained all his battery, but he's driven perfectly today. He nailed the restart. He's going to come around the final corner, and it is going to be Nitro Shooter who wins in Singapore. Donuts across the line. Lillian's in P2. Liam Stevens P3, and it's Chaos across the line. Julian P4, Menno P5, Noel Carmen P6, Miltos Karafaludis P7, Sven Schumacher P8, Konterbaka P9, and Felipe Sousa rounds off the finishes in P10. What a race, what a performance from Nitro Shooter, completely deserving the victory today, absolutely amazing.
I feel like I've just commentated over an endurance race with how many safety cars were in that. It's been a long, long haul. But again, even more impressive and even more props should go to Nitro Shooter for the way that he handled that race with all of that nonsense, I suppose, going on around him. Managing the safety car restarts really well. Strategy was well thought out. It was decisive. It was clear. Wasn't doing any dummying going into the pit lane. Was just getting on with it, racing at his race. And raced it really, really well. Managed to get that win nice and easily. Judged it to perfection. And, of course, takes that W.
Yep, a very good performance there. I mean, a great performance from Lillian as well. You can't discount that. I mean, until the end, he just wasn't able to nail the restart. Lillian, though, with a win and now a second place, is going to keep his lead of the championship. So, good enough to him. There is your final order. Nitro, Lillian, Liam Stevens, Klaffenbach, Menno, Carmen, Karafalidis, Schumacher, Bakker, Sousa, Lopez, and those are all the finishers. The fastest lap goes to Dehard Dimitrioglu, who did DNF.
Yeah.
But that was a very exciting Singapore Grand Prix. Next week is... Oh, I haven't looked at this. Sorry. Next week is going to be the French Grand Prix at La Casalette. Excuse my French pronunciation.
Well, I like a bit of Paul Ricard. It'll go down nicely, I hope. But yes, so hopefully there's not going to be as much nonsense in that, or at least not as many safety cars. We'll hope you join us there next week. Same time, same place as always. Tier 3, 7 o'clock on Thursday. Anyway, see you there. See you then. Have a great time. And we'll see you next week.
This broadcast was brought to you by GT Omega, proudly supporting PSGL.